Welcome to Connection Oasis. We're Hope and Renee, two friends sharing our stories, lessons, and laughter. Today, we are going to go into a chapter that I got to be honest. When I first saw you wrote this chapter and the name of it, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Because the chapter is called Be a Rhino. And I was like, this is not an animal book. Like, what? So, um, and I think the first time I read it, it was very incomplete. It was literally like two paragraphs. And then this is one of them that you actually let sit for quite a while and then came back and finished later.
I did.
So I still wasn't sure where we were going with this Be a Rhino, but I think it turned out very well and it makes a lot of sense. So let's dig into that.
Well, I chose the Rhino for its unique composition of seemingly contrasting attributes. I felt like the contradiction is so apt for the contradiction in the way that I saw myself when I was young versus the way I see me now.
Mm.
So, how different would you say that your self-image is now than when we were, say, 21?
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have? Oh my gosh. Self-image when you're in school, I think is a huge part of who you are. And I
Yes.
I feel like self-image comes more from how you fit in with others when you're in school. And then when you get out of school and you get into relationships, then that kind of becomes part of your self-image and your identity. And then when you are a wife or a husband and a parent,
Mhm.
it just continues to build on there. So what I would say, how I would answer that question is that I didn't necessarily have a self-image that I chose for myself. My self-image was made up more of my different identities that I felt like I had taken on.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I started peeling back a lot of those layers that I was able to even find a true identity. And that is a process.
Oh, so yes, absolutely. There were so many things about myself that I didn't understand until I was in the season of 40. And we talk about season 40
Hmm.
is not a number. It's a
Right.
season, of your life. For example, I am an extremely empathetic person. I tune into the energy that people around me put off, and it affects my mood if I don't identify that energy and where it's coming from. And when I was a young adult, I spent a great deal of time running around to, large family gatherings. And there was a specific family member whom I found affected my mood just by being near me.
Mm.
And so at the time, I just kind of chalked it up to, I have complicated feelings about this person, but in reality, it was they were an extremely anxious person, and their energy really emitted that anxiety. And so
Mm.
I can recall a specific encounter where we were at one of these gatherings, and everybody kind of drifted off here or there, and it was just the two of us, and I felt so incredibly uneasy. And so I the silence between us was just unbearable. And I couldn't stop myself from just spouting off ridiculous crap just because I couldn't stand this, anxious, uncomfortable silence. And so you could you could also call it word vomit.
Oh,
It's
yes, we've all been there.
once it begins, you can't stop it, and you're just absolutely horrified at what's coming out of your mouth.
Why
I
did
mean,
I just say that?
yes. Why did I say that thing? Like you hear it, and at the same time, you're like, no, no, I so
Can
don't
I
mean
take it back
this.
real quick?
Yes. And so after that unfortunate conversation, I avoided being alone with this person at all costs. I mean, it took
Hmm.
me years to figure out that the reason I felt this painful uncomfortability was that I was literally feeling how uncomfortable and insecure that she felt while talking to me. And it's
Mm.
so unbelievable how deeply that affected me.
Yes. So I just want to pause here for a second because I think people misunderstand empathy. I know I did. I did not have a very good grasp on empathy, but feeling someone else's discomfort isn't the real problem. It's when you start kind of carrying it on yourself and
Yes.
assimilating it into your emotions.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
so what inspires me about this chapter, though, isn't just your ability to feel the energy so deeply. It's that you never have tried to be like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to feel others people's energies. But what you have done is like, how do I manage this? How do I still honor this part of myself, but at the
Right.
same time not let it like take over my life? Um, and, we do hear people say all the time, like, you got to
Yes.
do the work all the time.
Yes. Do the work.
And what does it mean? Like, what? That's so vague. It's so just out there. Like, okay, great, yeah, I'll just do that. But
It's
what does that really
daunting.
look like?
Yes.
And it looks like this. It looks like learning the difference between your energy and someone else's, just like you're describing.
Hmm.
And it looks like pausing instead of immediate reactions. And it looks like trusting your instincts, even when it would be so much easier to ignore them.
Yes. So, my granddad used to tell me when I was really little, he would say, who you are, the real you is the person that you are when nobody's looking.
Mm.
And, when I was in elementary school, I did not get that at all. I had no
No.
idea what he meant. But, now I'm amazed because, that's a pretty profound statement, really.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's telling me is that the choices I make when there's no chance of me getting in trouble or getting rewarded, that is who I am. That reflects my true self. So if
Right.
nobody's watching me and I'm walking down the street and, I see a piece of trash on the ground, I pick it up and I throw it away. Then that's the real me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I walk past that trash and I just leave it there, then that's the real me. The
Yeah.
point is, there is a real me, and I'm the only person who really has control over me and who I am.
Right.
So, can you remember a time when it occurred to you that people might act differently depending on the situation?
I think really when I noticed this was probably in high school.
Hmm.
And I had friends that you and I both, we hung around with a very eclectic group of people.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for sure.
we
Yeah.
had, friends who were extremely popular, and we had friends who were barely showing up for school most of the time. So
We did. It's true. It's true.
we were just kind of those people who just were like, we were comfortable in a lot of different scenarios. But I think the first time that I realized that not everybody is their true self a lot of the time was when I did have friends who were fairly popular, and we had a class together where none of her other friends were in that class. We would talk, we would have fun, we would have a great time, but then I had another class where her friends were in that class and she would act like she didn't know me.
Yeah,
And I was like,
absolutely.
"Huh. Well, that's interesting." And I think that was the first time I was like, I don't know which one's the real her. I don't. And, they just may be different parts of herself that came out in different scenarios. But what I did know, it was very inconsistent.
Yes, I think I think that the real me is reflected in an energy that I have. And, when I meet people, they, to differing degrees, will sense that energy. And in turn, I can sense theirs. And this sense that I possess, although when I was young, it was definitely so difficult to navigate, but it's actually a gift. And so learning how to just really quiet my mind and differentiate my energy from the energy that I'm feeling coming from outside myself That took a lot of time and practice, but it helps me to make decisions that are based on instinct in the moment, like a rhino.
Mm,
So years ago, I happened across a documentary about rhinos, and I remember being completely surprised. These animals they're not what I expected. Like the name rhinoceros comes from the ancient Greek, and it means nose horn. Very weird.
okay.
White rhinos are the second largest land mammal in the world, second only to elephants. Rhinos are herbivores. I mean, I thought, these are giant animals. How could they possibly nourish themselves with a few plants,
Yeah, and like, what the heck is
Um,
that horn for then if you're not going to kill anything?
yeah, that's what I assumed. But they have a horn. Clearly, they can kill things. Surely they probably eat them. No.
Yes.
um, I love this. A group of rhinos is called a crash. Love that.
Oh, yeah, I do love that.
Yeah, I could go on, but you get the point. Something about them, just the contradiction of their existence, it just spoke to me. They're
Mhm.
large, they're powerful, they're intimidating looking,
Mhm.
and they're endangered and they're vulnerable, much more so than I thought. And ultimately, to me, they symbolize strength and intuition and peace. So as I learned how to, enter a room, assess the energy, and then sort of adjust to create a positive atmosphere, I became a lot more self-confident. So these skills allowed me to interact with people just on different levels, than I was accustomed to. So I've had a lot of jobs in my life.
Mhm.
And one that I particularly enjoyed was I worked in the cafeteria at my kids' school. And when I worked there, we had just such a fun-loving group of ladies. Like I loved going to work every day. Plus I could be there for the kids. And
Right.
so, yeah, the whole group, they were just sweet and funny and giving and kind. They loved the kids. I loved the kids. Not just my kids, but kids would just get to know us and just come by on their way, like, hey, what's going on? There was a younger lady that was hired, and she was just a little more guarded than the rest of us. She was the new guy. They're probably a little intimidated because we all really did get along really well.
Mhm.
But we didn't realize she was having some personal issues and she just wasn't comfortable enough yet to talk about it in front of everybody. Very often she was just quiet. And so that's what we thought. No, she's just a quiet kind of a person.
Mhm.
And so one day she comes in and she's again very quiet. But our boss had noticed something from the day before that she just a little mistake that she had made. And so just as a learning thing, she's a super nice lady, very by the book, and so she had kind of pulled her aside to say, you made this mistake yesterday, not a big deal. In the future, do it differently. It was really not
Right.
a big deal, not a big deal at all.
Mhm.
But this young lady, she just became irate. She went into a different room, a small room, and just wanted to work by herself.
Mhm.
And so we were surprised, and I remember we all just kind of were looking around for a second and we can hear the dishes clanging in the other room and her stomping around. And so we were all just amazed, like, just didn't understand why she was upset. And so finally I thought, you know what, maybe I can figure this out. So
Mhm.
I just walked into the little room and I walked up beside her and I just kind of stood there for a minute. And I expected to feel a little sting of anger.
Right.
But instead, what I got was a lot of sadness.
Mm.
And so I just kind of stood beside her for a second, and I didn't look at her. I just kind of looked at the counter and I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she was very surprised. She was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, you're not acting like yourself today, and just I thought if there's anything, that's wrong that you want to talk about, like I'm here, but if not, whatever." She started bawling.
Yeah.
And
Oh
then
my.
she kind of told me like, "Hey, I've been going through this difficult thing and I got some terrible news last night, you know?" Um and then just that little mistake that she had made the day before that got called out kind of in front of everybody, that was just that little embarrassment was the straw that just broke the camel's back. So we
Right.
just talked for a minute and I encouraged. The point being that I walked into the room and I just quieted my mind for a moment and I really honed in on what energy I picked up from her. And it wasn't what I expected.
Right.
So then I instinctively changed my approach. I think that understanding how important that instinct was in the moment, now I choose this rhino as my inspiration, my spirit animal. And that's what it just sort of brought to my mind in the moment.
Right. And trusting that takes courage, especially when you know you're going to act on it. And
Right.
so you want to really be sure. And that takes a lot of courage. And it would have been much easier just to stay in the other room and be like, let her do her thing, or label her as dramatic or whatever and moved on. But it was
Hmm.
really a pivotal point for everyone in that
Right.
situation that you were able to trust your instincts and stay and do the right thing in the moment.
Right. And I think when we talk about empathy, for me, empathy is what helps me to sort of understand what's going on around me. I think that in a lot of moments, you are also very, very good about acting on your instincts. And I guess I would wonder a little bit like you're obviously not as empathetic to the point that I am. So, but you have these really good instincts. So, how do
Hmm.
you feel like your instincts guide you?
Yeah, it was never about empathy. I'm starting to figure out how to integrate that into my daily life, but it was more about gut, and my gut is just strong. And if I don't listen to it, I, I don't know when the last time I didn't listen to it was, so it's hard to say what happens. But I can just tell you, it's so strong that it's almost like it's just very compelling.
Yes.
And that has come up in a lot of situations where I felt the need to stand up for another person, and I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't do it,
I was that
and
person very often.
I have at times put myself in questionable situations. um, but it was never really about the risk versus reward, any of that. It was just like I have to do this, and it's just it's a very compelling thing for me that I can't just ignore. And I would say it works the same as empathy. Like you knew you could even figure out how to help her by using that tool. Mine is like, yeah, you're gonna do this. There's no other option. It's just so clear to me sometimes.
I can remember times when you would say in high school, "Hey, we should do this thing. It'll be fun." And I was scared. And
Uh-huh.
you would say, "Don't you think it'll be fun?" And I remember being like, "Ugh, she's right, you know." And then so I feel like without you and your gut,
Hmm.
my life would have been so boring.
That might be true. I definitely typically do not avoid exciting situations.
Your gut has taught me a lot. I hope that my gut can help you too.
Oh, well, your empathy has taught me a lot. I still have a lot to learn though, but even just knowing that empathy was a thing and that it can be very useful, that's kind of just that was all news to me, which is odd for me because I feel like I do have some very empathetic people in my life.
Mhm.
But I've always seen it, and I will get into this in later chapters, but I've always seen it be a detriment. Like
Mm. It
they
can be.
always,
It can
yeah,
be.
they
Yes.
always gave up what was best for them
Hmm.
because they were empathetic towards someone else. And I think that's part of the reason why I learned how to turn that off at an early
Hmm.
age.
Well, I think that my being very empathetic is what led me to owning responsibility for the feelings of the people who wanted a lot from me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to your point, I think either way, as again we'll talk about later, either of those things to the extreme can be
Yes.
detrimental.
Yes. It's all about finding that balance. And sometimes the work's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's definitely not an overnight transformation. It can be just a quiet awareness, discipline, choosing intention over impulse.
Hmm.
Just like you're talking about with the rhino, and now I get it. I get why it's called Be a Rhino, but I had some doubts, but
That's
we got
fair.
there. Thanks for joining us here at Connection Oasis, where we discuss real life lessons about relationships and boundaries.
And becoming who you actually are without the fluff.